Dear brothers and sisters, today we are going to reflect on a command that seems simple but is deeply challenging, practical, and urgent. Love your neighbor as yourself. This is not a vague moral slogan or a sentimental idea. It is a commandment from God, repeated throughout Scripture, and it is the key to understanding why Sodom was destroyed and why Lot's ending was so tragic. Let us begin by looking at the scriptural foundation of this command. 1. Love your neighbor as yourself, not love all humanity. In the King James Version, KJV, the phrase, as thyself, appears 9 times in the entire Bible. And every time, without exception, it is preceded by the word neighbor. Twice in the Old Testament, Leviticus. 7 times in the New Testament, in Matthew, Mark, Luke, Romans, Galatians. Never does Scripture tell us to love all people as ourselves. We are told to love our neighbors, those whom God has placed near us whom we interact with regularly, family members, neighbors, co-workers, fellow believers, members of our community. 2. Human limitation and the priority of the neighbor. God commands us to love our neighbors, not because He doesn't care about distant people, but because He knows we are limited. We are not omnipotent, omnipresent, or omniscient. Even the most capable among us can only deeply care for a limited number of people. Therefore, God in His wisdom commands us to direct our love and energy toward those near us first. Some people like to say, love all humanity. That may sound noble, but when resources, time, or loyalty are in conflict, we must make choices. And according to Scripture, our neighbor comes first. This also explains why political leaders are biblically justified in prioritizing their own people. For instance, when President Trump said, "America first," that was not selfish or unloving. It was a reflection of the biblical principle of loving one's own neighbor. The American people are His neighbors. He is responsible for their safety and well-being. Had He placed the citizens of other nations on equal footing, or even above His own, He would have violated God's principle of neighbor love. For example, building a border wall to protect national integrity and legal order is consistent with the duty to love one's national community. 3. Why was Sodom destroyed? The real reason. Most people think Sodom was destroyed because of its great wickedness, and indeed, it was. But that's not the decisive reason. Let's read Genesis 18 verses 22 to 32, where Abraham negotiates with God. Abraham pleads with God, "If there are 50 righteous people, will you spare the city?" God says, "Yes." Then 45, then 40, then 30, then 20. Finally, Abraham asks, "If there are just 10 righteous people?" God answers, "I will not destroy the city for the sake of 10. So what was God looking for? Not the absence of evil, but the presence of righteousness. Not a perfect city, but 10 righteous people who could represent it before Him. But there were not 10. For Lot's failure, a life without neighborly love. We know from Genesis 19 that Lot was rescued, along with his wife and 2 daughters. Even if we generously count all 4, that's still less than 10. And Lot's wife turned back and was destroyed. What does this tell us? Despite living in Sodom for years, Lot failed to lead even a small group of people to fear and follow God. Even his sons-in-law laughed at him, Gen 19:14. He had no spiritual influence. When the city's men surrounded his house, no neighbors came to his aid. He was isolated, ineffective, and desperate. Compare that with Abraham. In Genesis 14, when Lot was captured, Abraham mobilized 318 trained men from his own household and joined forces with local allies to rescue Lot. Abraham had built trusting relationships, trained a loyal community, and maintained moral authority. Lot, on the other hand, had no one. And when danger came, his only response was to offer his own daughters to appease the mob. That's not leadership, that's collapse. 5. What if Lot had loved his neighbors? Imagine if Lot had truly loved his neighbors as himself. What if he had led even just 10 of them to righteousness? When the mob came, those 10 righteous people might have stood beside him to protect the messengers. If the angels had seen that kind of righteousness at work, 10 faithful standing against evil, the city could have been spared. This is exactly what God told Abraham. If there are 10 righteous people, I will not destroy it. The presence of a small community of righteous people can change everything. Righteousness has power to cover sin, to stay judgment, to protect a city. 6. The modern error, global love without God. Today, many preach universal love, global compassion, or humanitarian love without borders. It sounds beautiful, but let's be honest, who can actually do this? Can you care equally for every refugee, every orphan, every stranger on earth? Can you respond to every cry for help in every country? You cannot. You are not God. When people begin to act as though they can love all of humanity equally, they are not being righteous, they are being arrogant. And if we look closely, many tyrants and extremist groups in history have claimed they were serving humanity or saving the world. But what they really brought was destruction. Because when people try to do what only God can do, they don't bring salvation, they bring ruin. When people replace God with their own humanitarian ideologies, their hearts have no room left for God. 7. What we must do, build 10 righteous people. So what is our calling? Not to love abstract humanity, but to love our actual neighbor. The people in our household, our church family, our workplace, our town or village. Train them, disciple them, pray with them, serve them, teach them to know God. If judgment comes to our land, and God looks for 10 righteous people, will He find them? Let us be like Abraham, building a faithful community of God-fearing people. Let us not be like Lot, living among the people, but never truly loving them or leading them to God. Conclusion: Sodom was not destroyed merely because it was sinful. It was destroyed because it lacked righteous people. Lot's tragedy was not just the corruption around him, but the isolation, passivity, and failure to love and lead. Let us not repeat that mistake. Let us love our neighbors, not vaguely, but deliberately, consistently, and spiritually. Let us raise up 10 righteous people in our community. Because when the judgment comes, it's not evil that determines survival, it's the presence of righteousness. Thank you.